just so we can start recording. But we welcome you to day 2. Yesterday we learned a lot about seasonal foraging and a little bit about the 13-month calendar. And then we also learned about community gardens, and then some about our Shasha revitalization project, which is really near and dear to us. So if any of you have any questions, or we actually have a session because of the surveys, which are so important and so beautiful. And so if you're able to do them, we just ask that you take a few minutes and fill it out if you can. Sunshine put it in the chat. I might have to plop it in there one more time for the new people. But so for one of the survey asks was that we just have an open time to just, talk freely, not really have an agenda. And we felt like that was really beautiful. And so at the end of the day, we'll have a session where you could ask more questions about some of the topics we talked about, or go into just a free debrief session and just have no agenda. And obviously all of these also, you are free to, as you go into your groups, take them on however you would like them. But yeah, welcome to day 2. We're really excited to share with you some of the teachings that we've gained, and just some resources as you're thinking about food sovereignty in your community. And so we would just like to, again, start off today by introducing our organization, which is the Miniwichoni Clinic and Farm. We're a nonprofit organization that is going to be based on Standing Rock. We don't have a physical location at the moment, but we have been offering some programming around women's health, around just connecting to different ceremonial ways, and really thinking about what food sovereignty looks like in our community. And all of these are really relational. And so we've been thinking about ways that we know that none of this work happens in isolation. None of it happens through one organization or one person. And so we really emphasize that working together for the common goal of being good relatives to our people, and sharing, knowledges that we all are collectively gathering, and healing together is important. And so that's a huge part of our work. And if you got the slides through the email, which you most likely did because you're here, that the information is at the front of the slides from yesterday. So without going too much further into it, I wanted to introduce Kay Adewayaki, John Eagleshield. If you can offer us a prayer today and help us to open up in a good way. And if you want to share reflections from yesterday, and just whatever you'd like to share, Dad, we'd appreciate that.
Oh, okay. Good morning. I just woke up and I didn't get a chance to comb my hair. So good morning, everybody.
Oh, that puppy.
That's my companion. Anyway, I had a good time yesterday. I had a chance to relive some good old memories of Wambli Chikala, growing up down there, and all the ways that we had to use the earth and plant and make a living for ourselves. And it didn't seem like work back then. It was just another opportunity to get out and work with the ground and be on the ground, and share that with family and community. So thank you, you young ladies, for bringing that all back for me. And I really appreciate it. And things are moving here on Standing Rock too, not only with you ladies, but I was at a meeting last night, and this whole DAPL issue is re-emerging again, and this time it's kind of critical. If we're not involved, then federal agencies and whatever are going to make decisions for us, and we'll be stuck with it, and we'll have no remedy for a lot of things. So things are moving here, and I'm part of that too. As a elder person, it's good to be recognized and know that in places my words have value. So again, thank you. So for to this day, dona lakota ki hala namahopo. Nahakshi ekshewi chache macha. Matuinishni matakunishni kas. Oshilakshi lachu. Ocheke oji aplochake mitake pi namahopo. Tronkashila wa kantranka. Khate topa na hawajimaka namahopalo. Ampetu ke ake trechelo. Ampetu ke luta na wakhan. Tronkashila troke warsten kupana halila wopla kinichapalo. Ke ampetu ke leo. Omniche wa gagapalo. Wea ke Otaki now, Kakapelo. Chastunkashila, Lel, Makanko, Ahito Mapo, Keuha. Naha Makanko, Lel, Maushila, Yuha. Naha Tuachi Hantahash, Al Woke, which I create. Naha Betuanji, Akehecha. Wo cheke wo apia ona koto ya teke prewahe ke a Iglúhapi kapitelo. Ja hechegla e prinkte tronkashila. Omitake aase. I asked, thankful for another good day, a red day, a holy day. I asked that tronkashila watch over this meeting here today, and that he has compassion on all of us, the words we say, and for those that need help in any manner, for him to render as he sees fit, and then to remind us that in the days to come, through prayer and through healing, we'll all be better and stronger people for the things that we do this day. For all these things, we're very, very thankful. Thank you.
I really appreciate all the words that you share with us. I mean, I'm fortunate that I get to hear them often, and I get to be reinforced in that way. And thanks for always joining us and being a part of the work that we're doing. I know we pull you in all kinds of different ways. So thank you for always showing up for us. And so we appreciate it.
And for always encouraging us. I want to raise that up too, because sometimes we're stumbling through things, but you always encourage us and let us know that we're moving forward in a good way. And I think that really helps us too. So.
Well, thank you very much for asking me.
All righty. Well, I hope everyone is having a good start to their morning. We we just want to just give a snapshot of our agenda. We're going to have a movement exercise today, and it'll be super doable. It'll be simple. I think it's going to be, you could do it in your chair if you needed to. And the same concept as yesterday when we did the visualization exercise, that we had it open up a few things for us. And so, you know, you can keep your cameras off, however you want to do it. But to just really think of where these things sit in your body. I think it's just the same as, I mean, it's not just the same in its own way. It's similar that when you sit with your breath and you think about, you know, getting silent and thinking of where things are in your mind, or where your thought processes are, things come up for you. And so the same way is we think that, I mean, we believe and we know that certain things sit in our body differently. And so we are going to do a small movement exercise this morning, and hopefully, you know, if you need to turn your camera off, it won't feel silly, but we just ask that each of you just move through the process in whatever way feels comfortable for you. If it feels, you know, uncomfortable or awkward or whatever, then just think of that. Maybe dig deep into that, write about that, because we really are understanding how much our healing relates to the healing of the land and the earth, and how we treat ourselves is a reflection of how we also treat the earth. And so we just felt like that was something really important that we wanted to include. And then we'll also give a break. So we'll have a discussion after that, whatever comes up for us. And then we'll take a break, because we know that during this time, our Zoom and access to each other, excuse me, that Zoom and access to people has been probably overused, and it seems like you're constantly in people have access to you all the time, into your home, through your computer. And so we just want to take that break, but also we want to remind each of you that from the community agreements yesterday, that whatever you need to do to take care of your body throughout the day, or take care of your health, or if you have to step out, like we're honoring that and respecting that. This isn't, you know, each of you are choosing to be here. And so we are not, we're so thankful, but we will not be offended if you need to step out or need to focus on yourself. We are, you know, the planning group are mothers, and we are understanding of the needs of everybody. So we'll take a break, and then Linda Black Elk will come in a little bit later, and she'll do a live demonstration. And so I wish we would have figured this out, like supplies. So sorry guys, hold on. She just still has that morning froggy voice. But so Linda will be, I'm pretty sure she'll be bringing bringing a zucchini of some sort. I mean, these are, we talked about it a little bit. I wish we would have planned a little bit better for the food demonstration part of it, because later after her session, we'll share a little bit more about how it's important to be working with the foods that we're demonstrating. And so anyway, we'll discuss that a little bit later, but she'll be doing a live demonstration. And so maybe right beforehand, I'm pretty sure one's going to be a zucchini. So if you have a zucchini on your counter, I know our gardens aren't producing them yet, but if you bought one at the White Buffalo or whatever grocery store is closest to you. And I also think that she will be goblaing some meat, which I don't even know the translation to gobla, but cutting up some meat to dry for bapa. So if you have like a frozen round of meat or something, you could get it out. They said it's better to cut when it's frozen. So just preparing you for that session. If you want to be involved in it in any way during break, maybe you could get some of those things and just be ready. I think I'm gonna grab a block of meat and try to be ready. and then after that, we're going to get into a little bit of policies, and we're not trying to bore you or put you all to sleep. And so we want to be just cognizant of that the policies that we'll be sharing, it's really just like an arching view or discussion about what policies could be doing, because a lot of the things that we had discussed, you could do this stuff for free. Like you could get seeds and just plant it in your yard, but there are supports that are needed a lot of times in our communities for our nations and our communities to support the movement towards food sovereignty. And so we'll just share a little bit about policies and why we feel that they're important, and how things have been impacted. And then we'll talk a little bit about recipes. And really, there's unlimited amount of resources online. And so we're not just going to toss a bunch of recipes at you, but we're going to get to a really important conversation about connection to food. And then we'll have a closing and finish out the door prizes for the day. And so hopefully it won't be too long or, too crazy. And just again, reminding you all that the surveys really help us to do better and to be better for you all and for our community. And so if you can take the time to finish the survey that I sent in the email yesterday and Tasha sent this morning, and also today, if you could finish the survey before you leave, if there's extra time, it's just really helpful for us as we plan these projects, and it really helps us to think about it. We're not asking for feedback on how we're, how did we look? How did we talk? Hey, we're really just wanting to think of the supports that you all need. So if you all are trying to do a garden or some type of revitalization project, what are the things that you would like? Would you like our proposal or maybe our budget or, things like that? We really want to be, because none of these things came to us on our own. We have so many elders and community members that work with us. And so we are in the realm of like that, this is all of our shared work. And so we want to be good relatives in that way by just offering up, any resources that we have or we create. So just please fill out the surveys if you have time. And thank you again to everybody who joined. Again, this is a recorded session. Thank you, Ate, for saying the prayer this morning. And again, as this next session comes up, I just want you all to know that it's whatever way is comfortable for you, whatever comes up for you, to do what you need to. It's just really beautiful to think about how movement is so impactful for us. And that's why powwows, were so important in their origins and how they healed, and the ways that powwows are now are taking on its own life, but they still bring so much healing. And so I think the power of movement in our communities has always been there. And I'm very thankful that we have one of our own who is teaching about movement in a healthy way and in a good way, and thinking of ways that to keep it not harmful, whatever. So thank you, Pearl, again for joining us and helping us to think and go within. And so I welcome you. And I know, Pearl, you're super busy. So thank you again for joining us and being here and helping us heal.
Good morning. Thank you again for inviting me to share this. I hope you all can hear me okay. I've got a little bit of a sore throat, but I'm all right. So let me just make sure you can see me. I'm gonna walk you through a movement session that you can do really without a yoga mat. If you've got a really nice carpeted area, you can see behind me, I've got my son's like play rug here under carpet. So if you have a place like that, that's what I recommend. You can also do some of this movement in a chair. So if you prefer to sit in a chair, you can do most of the movement from your chair, but I encourage you to find like a carpeted area or padded area. You're always welcome to bring a yoga mat if you choose to do that. And just before we get started here, if you don't have yoga props, don't feel bad. So you can roll up a blanket and use that. Or if you have a yoga block or like a stack of like sturdy books or a big thick Lakota dictionary book, you could probably use that. And I've got something called a yoga strap. But if you have a belt or something that you can twist up, it'll add length to your arms for some of the shapes that we'll do. So just some things to get your space ready. I like to sit on something that puts my hips up. So we'll start with like a meditation. I'm gonna sit on my yoga block this time, but you can sit on a blanket or a pillow. And you can cross your legs, or if you're sitting in your chair, just kind of sit forward a little and just get kind of situated in your space. I'm gonna start my timer so I don't go way over time. And once you're in your space there, you can sit up tall like a tree. Imagine the bottom of your seat are roots and your body is the trunk. And let your limbs just relax, fall heavy. Let your shoulders soften. Let your gaze soften. Let the space between your eyebrows soften. And just take a moment to notice any sounds you hear around you. And take a moment to notice how you feel right now. Inhale, fill yourself with air. And slowly exhale. Again, inhale, fill yourself with air. Slowly exhale. And just continue bringing your breath in and out. Now that we're present in this space and time, we're going to invite movement into the body, using our breath to guide us in any of these shapes we'll do. And releasing any tension, any places we feel we're maybe a little tender, we'll use our breath to help us work through those spots. So if you're sitting down with me in your chair or on the floor, we're going to put our hands out near our hips on each side of us. And you're welcome to, I'll share a couple variations for each thing so you have some options. You're welcome to tuck your right hand behind your back, or you can leave it placed on the side of you. And bring your left ear towards your left shoulder and exhale. And inhale, fill yourself with air. Exhale slowly. And take one more breath here. Inhale, bring your ear back to neutral. And exhale. You can set your hand back if you tucked it behind you. You roll your shoulders out, just bring them up to your ears. Inhale. And exhale, roll them down. Again, you can place your hand to the side of you, or you can tuck your left hand behind your back. Inhale, and exhale, bring your right ear to your right shoulder. Again, inhale, fill yourself with air. Exhale slowly. Take another breath. Inhale, bring your ear back to neutral. Exhale, untuck your hand. And again, inhale, bring your shoulders up to your ears. Exhale, roll them down. And just take a moment here to notice how you feel. Now we're gonna do some movement for our wrists and hands, which are good for gardening if you've been doing a lot of writing on the computer or just a lot of things with your hands. So we're gonna face our palms up and then point the fingertips down towards the earth and slowly bring your palms down. And you can feel where it's maybe a little tight or you have some tension. Don't push it, just kind of feel it out. And inhale to lift it up and exhale to bring it closer to the earth. And it's okay if they don't go all the way down. It's not a competition. It's inviting movement into your own tendons and ligaments. You can feel free to pedal them out. And you can switch them around so your fingertips are facing the other way or inwards, facing each other, or outwards, opposite of each other. Move them in all four directions. So sacred. We're just inviting some movement here to support us in the rest of the practice. And take a couple more breaths here. Now here's where you have some options. If you're in your chair, I'll turn sideways so you can see this a little better. If you're in your chair, we'll do something similar on the floor here, but if you're in your chair, you're gonna roll the shoulders back, lifting the heart open and the chin up, and inhale. And exhale, tuck the chin towards the chest, round out the spine by bringing the shoulders forward and look at your belly button. And inhale, roll the shoulders back, lift the heart open and the chin up. And exhale, roll the shoulders forward, tucking the chin towards the chest, looking at your belly button. So continue using your inhales to lift your heart open and your exhales to round out your back. If you're on the floor, we'll do something similar by getting onto all fours. So you can meet me in something called tabletop, stacking your shoulders over your wrists and your hips over your knees. Knees are about hip width or shoulder width apart. We'll do the same motion. Inhaling, dropping the belly, lifting the heart open and the chin up. And exhale, tuck the chin in, rounding out the back and tucking the hips under. And inhale, dropping the belly, opening the heart, lifting the chin up. Exhale, rounding out the back, tucking the chin towards the chest, and the hips are tucked in. So continue taking some of these movements with your inhales and your exhales. This is a gentle way to get movement into our backbones. This is what we're doing when we're moving our body this way. Our backbone supports us in many ways for movement. So you can do it seated. You can do this standing. You can do this on the floor. And take a couple more breaths here. If you're in your chair, see, if you're sitting in your chair, you can come back to a neutral spine and tuck your chin towards your chest. Let your shoulders relax. You can hug yourself too, or bring your knees up and hug yourself in. If you're on the floor, bring your spine to a neutral position back in tabletop. We're gonna sit back on our heels and walk the hands forward, bowing the forehead down towards the earth for child's pose. And again, taking slow inhales, filling yourself with air, and slow exhales. In either shape you're in, we're letting Mother Earth just hold us, just love us in this shape. Take a couple more breaths and notice how you feel. If you're on the floor, you can meet me again in tabletop. And if you're in your chair, you're welcome to meet us here too, or I can give some variations to do in your chair. So from tabletop, you're gonna bring our right foot on the outside of our right hand. So I'm gonna turn so you can see this. I'm gonna bring that right foot over just on the outside of our right hand and just inhale, lean forward just slightly. And exhale, we're gonna walk our hands back. It's always okay to have a bend to the knee. We're just gonna try to bring our nose forward or a half split. And inhale, walk the hands forward. Gently bring the hips forward. And exhale, walk the hands back. Nose kind of comes forward. We're warming up the hips, doing this movement. And just take a couple of these. If you're in your chair, you can do the same thing by straightening out a leg, leaning forward, and then tucking it in, and then straightening it and walking it forward. So whichever way you're doing it, just a couple more times. And come back to tabletop, neutral spine. And we'll do the other side. We'll bring the left foot on the outside of that left hand. And inhale, gently bring the hips forward. And exhale, walk those hands back. Always okay to have a bend to your knee. And inhale, walk the hands forward. Gently bring the hips forward. And exhale, walk the hands back. Again, if you're in your chair, you can do the same thing you did with your right leg. Straighten that front leg out and gently bring your chest forward towards your knee. And then walking those hands up and hugging your knee in. We'll just take a couple more breaths here. Okay, and come back to neutral spine and tabletop. We're gonna sit on our heels. If you're in your chair, you can just sit up straight. We're gonna clasp our hands behind our back, or you can put them behind your hips, rolling the shoulders back and lifting the chin up. This is option one. And if you're on the floor, you have another option to sit up on your knees, tall, and do the same thing. Bringing your hips slightly forward, opening the heart and lifting the chin up. Both variations open the heart and the throat. And inhale, fill yourself with air. Exhale slowly. One more time. Inhale, fill yourself with air. Exhale slowly. Bring your chin to a neutral position. You can bring your hands in front of you. Relax your shoulders. And just take a moment to notice what's different, how you feel. And if you're in your chair, we're just gonna do some spinal twists. So if you got your handles, your armrests, you can bring your right hand towards your left knee and bring your left hand towards the armchair or behind your back and look over the left shoulder. Inhale and exhale. And inhale, come back to center, bringing both hands in front of you. And on the inhale, you'll switch, bringing the left hand to the right knee and the right hand behind that hip or on your armchair and looking over the right shoulder. And take a couple breaths, and the inhale will bring you back to center. You can take that a couple more times. You have another option if you're on the floor to come to tabletop. Inhale your right hand up towards the sky and reach it underneath the left arm, gently bringing your right shoulder down to the earth in your ear for a twist. If that's too much, you can come back to a seated position doing the spinal twists. Just feel where you're at in your body today. And come back to those slow inhales and slow exhales. We'll inhale the left hand up to the sky if you're in tabletop. And exhale, bring it under the right arm. Left shoulder will gently come down and the left ear. Take a slow inhale and a slow exhale. And everyone can meet in a seated position. We're gonna bring our feet out in front of us like a V shape. I'm gonna grab my blanket just to show you. I'm gonna bring it under my left knee and tuck the right foot into my left inner thigh for half butterfly. This is where your belt or your yoga strap will come handy. We're gonna inhale, add length to the spine, reaching tall, and then leaning forward, nose towards the knee, and say, I don't have long arms like I do, and I needed length in my arms. I would grab this yoga strap or belt and put it at the base of my foot and just kind of like pull myself in. This is another hip opener and also adds length to our hamstrings. And anytime we're sitting on the ground or sitting in a shape like this, we're connecting with Mother Earth. And so it's like she's holding us in our shape that we're in. You can inhale, lift up. You can lean back gently, and we'll switch, straighten that right leg out. Tuck the left foot into the right inner thigh. You can grab your extra support and put it under your right knee if you need it. Grab your belt or your yoga strap. Inhale, give length to your spine. And then exhale, fold forward. Nose towards the knee. Slowly inhale. Slowly exhale. One more breath. And inhale, we'll come back to a straight seat. Lean back. We're gonna bring both of the feet out in front of us. Just got a couple more movements here. I'm gonna switch. Okay. Tuck the belly button to your spine. Bring your feet in towards your bottom. And if you have your blanket or your pillow or a block, you can put that in front of your feet. And inhale, bring your feet on top of that block or that pillow and breathe. This is variation 1. Variation 2 is to lift your feet up towards your toes towards your eyes. Your feet up or towards your toes, silly me. And then option 3 is to bring your hands out in front of you. This is boat pose. So all 3 variations do the same thing and bringing fire and heat to your core, which strengthens your backbone and your pelvis. One more inhale. Slowly exhale. Bring your feet down. And we'll bring our feet together. Let them touch from the heel to toe, and our knees will come out wide for butterfly. So we'll inhale, lengthen the spine from the bottom of our seat, our roots, to the top of our head. And exhale, fold forward. Continue slowly inhaling and slowly exhaling. Inhale, walk yourself up. Bring your feet out in front of you. You can shake out your legs a little. We're gonna roll all the way onto our backs. You can gently hug in your knees and rock side to side. And let your knees gently fall to the left. Let your arms just soften. Again, slow inhales and slow exhales. On your next inhale, come back to center, hugging your knees in gently, taking your time getting there. You can gently rock side to side once you're there. And gently drop your knees towards the right. Letting your arms soften. Again, slowly inhale. Slowly exhale. Anytime we feel like our confidence or our moral compass needs a tune-up, or we need to connect with that again, we can come to this sort of shape, any type of twist. And inhale, bring yourself back to center, taking your time getting there. And gently hug your knees in. And when you're ready, you can rock yourself up to a seated position. Let's take a few breaths here. Let out any stagnant air. We did some movement to get our air flowing. So just take another nice inhale, fill yourself with air. Exhale powerfully. Another inhale, fill yourself with air. Powerful exhale. And just take a moment here to notice how you feel, maybe what's different. When you're ready, you can come back to this space. Maybe grab a drink of water. And I hope you notice that movement doesn't have to be vigorous or intense to feel good. It can be gentle, slow movement. There's lots of ways to move our body. Dancing, like Elena mentioned earlier, is one way of movement. Gardening is movement. Taking care of our children is a way of movement. Washing the dishes, going for a walk. There's lots of ways to move our body. So thank you again for letting me and trusting me in sharing this practice. So we're gonna have a little time here, I think, to do some small groups again and talk about what you got from this movement and thinking about how movement and healing, how movement heals our food systems and our body's ecosystem. So I don't know how much time now we have left.
So we have about 30 minutes until our break. So it's up to you guys how we do it. We can do 20-minute breakouts with, 10-minute, large group share outs, or we could use the whole 30-minute for breakout. What do you guys think?
Let's do a 20. Let's maybe do 20 minutes. So then we could do like a share out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Give me 1 second. I messed with some settings this morning, so it's not as easy as I hang on 1 second. Okay, we're gonna do 4 breakout rooms. I'm just gonna make sure we don't have all the board members in one room. Give me 1 second. All right, I think we are good. I'm gonna go ahead and send everybody to their rooms. Oh shoot, sorry guys, I gotta pause our recording. I just popped in to put the stuff in chat for you guys.
Anyway.
Sorry, I had to bring recording back on.
Just interrupt. Can you say that again?
Yeah, Brianne, Lexi, John was talking about hunting and stuff too, and how that, that movement keeps him healthy too.
Nice. Oh, Linda. Hi, Linda.
Hello. I heard your voice. I said, hey, we know who that is. And Luke said, yeah, I knew it was some reser.
Just the rizziest one on the call. Just embrace my rizziness.
All right. Makes everybody feel at home. Do you guys, does anybody want to share like from their group or just your individual experiences that you shared within the breakout rooms? We have a few more minutes to share out here.
So I'll share, never mind, go ahead. Sunshine, you share.
Could you tell I was about to unmute, or did I do that?
No, go ahead, Sunshine.
So one of our highlights was basically like, it helps to have community to keep us like not accountable, but like help us follow through with the goals we set for movement in our bodies. And it's like, I have the problem where it's hard for me to just follow through by myself. But if there's somebody else around, then I'm like, okay, I'll keep going a little bit further, push myself more. So we realized that that's always helpful. Also, having little ones keeps us moving when we, whether we want to or not.
I was just gonna say that. I was gonna say I'm 40. I'm gonna be 48 this year. But health-wise and movement-wise, having the grandkids, having my takojas in my house, and just having to create activities to keep them busy, to have to get up and be able to make sure they're entertained and not fighting each other. Those things keep me busy. So we hike, we fish. We buy everything for the summer activities. I feel like I'm 30. Like my body-wise, I could do whatever. They help me. They keep me busy. Right now, look, we're making slides.
Good job.
I love that, Melanie. And yeah, we in our group, we were talking about how, especially when you're young, if you have that foundation of physical activity, that foundation of movement, it makes such a difference. Because like I was saying, I've gained like a ton of weight over the pandemic. But like, I remember like even going to see my doctor, and she was feeling my stomach, and she was like, hey, you have some really strong abs under there, you know? Like, it was kind of like Lexi John was saying that under his belly, he has 6-pack abs. And I was like, you know, it's true though, because my mom really pushed physical activity and like martial arts and stuff like that when I was young. Even now, even though I'm chubby, even though I sit on the couch way too much, I have a good foundation of physical activity that I think keeps me healthier. And I would probably be way less healthy now than if my mom had not pushed that for us.
Those unchis make sure you're not just sitting around. You can't sit in the unchis houses all day. You're gonna go out, pick plums, you're gonna go out, do stuff like that.
Yeah, no being bored at unchis.
No.
I was just gonna say that our grandparents keep us moving just as much as our kids do, because they're like, there should be no reason why you're sitting still. There's always work to do, or something like that.
You're bored? Oh, come here. I have something. Come here. You're bored. Come here.
To my boy is listening. He's like, not at my grandma's. Hey, you can just sit around and watch TV.
Send him over to this grandma's. I have a garden.
Elena and I both cried when we went into the child's pose position and connected to earth. That's what she wrote in the chat, but it was unexpected. And for me, I was just like, just hearing it, I guess, was something that was impactful for me personally.
I wasn't in a group, but I think one of the questions that I thought I spent a lot of time thinking about while I was waiting for you guys to come back was that last kind of comment question about how does movement help to heal our food systems. And I think for me, it made me think a lot about, that idea of we can't take care of others if we don't take care of ourselves. So we've heard a lot about how much work it takes to grow, food and to harvest food. And so if we're not continuously moving and staying active and keeping our bodies healthy, then we don't have the energy to do those things that we need to go out on the land and to harvest and to maintain a garden. And so I think to me, that's how, movement is important to heal our food systems, is if we're gonna really try to encourage our communities to take back some of these ways or to continue to work on these things, we also have to encourage them to be healthy and keep moving and take care of their bodies so they can have the energy and strength to do those things.
Okay. So Pearl, I don't know if you want to close it off or just end with a final comment, and then Linda, if you could tell us what you might be working with, because I said during the break, maybe we could go get like a piece of meat or a zucchini or something that we could be doing the demonstration with.
Awesome. No, that's great. So Luke and I are both here, and if you guys can see behind me, can you guys see me? Yeah, we've already been cutting meat to hang and dry, and this is just our dining room. And the only thing that we have, you don't need a fancy drying rack. I mean, Luke had to do that, so I'd stay married to him, Now he's really good at like putting stuff together, and we just had some leftover dowels and a couple of long pieces of wood. So he just drilled holes in these longer ones and ran some dowels through them, and that's what we use. But even if you just have a piece of string, even if you have a piece of rope, or even if you go outside and get a branch off of a tree that you can lay flat between two countertops, that works to dry meat. You do not have to be fancy with it. My sister Lisa Ironcloud, she has a rigging up above her head where like the meat just kind of hangs over their head. Every once in a while she's cooking, piece of dried meat will fall down off the ceiling. But yeah, so all you need today is some type of roast, buffalo, elk, deer, any type of red meat roast, and a knife. That's it. That's really all you need. Cutting board is nice. Some rig to dry them is nice. But I'll also talk about how you can dry it in the oven. Maybe you live in a climate where it's humid and you don't think that you can dry the meat, air dry it. I'll tell you how you can dry it in the oven with the same results. So really a knife and a roast would be great to have with you right now.
Awesome. Okay. So we'll go on our break. Pearl, do you want to say any last final comment? And then we'll get our break started, and then we'll be back for the food demonstration.
Yeah, sure. Thank you all again for joining me in that movement session. I hope if you weren't able to fully do it with us today, that you can watch the recording later and do some of those movements on your own. And just kind of, I mentioned earlier, movement doesn't have to be super intense. There's different types of movement that have already been mentioned: dancing, hunting, gardening, taking care of our children and grandchildren. And there's lots of ways to move your body. And as part of our ecosystem, we're part of our food's ecosystem. And so thank you. But other than that, I don't have any words of wisdom or anything to share that hasn't already been shared. Just to use your breath, as you're moving, remember to use your breath to help you move, and whatever that movement looks like for you, to balance that with stillness. So resting is important and part of movement. So always find ways to balance that out with moving your body and resting. And thank you again for inviting me, for thinking of me. And I hope we get to do this again sometime. Yeah, it's just good to be here and to share this, this practice with you all.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Pearl. We appreciate you and value you. And thank you for sharing your practice with us. So we're going to go on a 10-minute
chill out with you guys today. And to dry some meat with you guys. I actually learned how to do this from my husband, who's from Cheyenne River. He's a member of Cheyenne River. And as is our youngest. My 2 older sons are enrolled on Standing Rock, and I'm like, so like every day I think about my friends, my sisters and brothers on Standing Rock, and how thankful I am that at a time in my life when I really didn't like have a place, they made a place for me on Standing Rock. And it's like been one of the best experiences of my life. So that actually made me tear up a little. But yeah, but my husband now, he's like, yeah, but now you're Cheyenne River now. Yeah, so I learned how to dry meat from him. You know, even now it's crazy how many people I meet, even indigenous people, who are like, well, don't you need to salt it? You know, don't you need to salt the meat? Isn't it going to spoil if you just hang it up like this and air dry it? You know, or people who say, don't you need to light a fire under it? Don't you need to, like, you know, light a fire and, you know, smoke the meat so that it doesn't spoil? And I'm like, you know, the climate here in the Dakotas especially, but in many places, unless you live in the Southeast, like Florida, North Carolina, and those really humid areas, you can air dry meat. You don't need a dehydrator. You don't need an oven. The meat that you see hanging behind us here, we just now cut. We have some beautiful buffalo roasts with us, and we're really thankful. That's Brown Otter Buffalo, from Ron Brown Otter, a member of the Standing Rock Nation. And it is delicious, by the way, first of all. But you know, we hang this meat to dry. We do this all the time, and it will literally be dried and ready to go in 3 days. 3 days, completely dried, which kind of says a lot about the climate in North and South Dakota, how dry it is here. But it's also, you know, indicative of the fact that you really can air dry meat, and it won't spoil as long as you cut it thinly enough. You know, I got to give a shout out to my sister, Lisa Ironcloud. She's Oglala Lakota, and she's taught me a lot about drying meat. And, you know, she and I have had all these discussions where we're always surprised at how paranoid people are about drying meat. You know, they're always afraid they're going to do something wrong. And so what she says is just try it. Just give it a try, you know, and you'll see your mistakes and you'll know. But, you know, I remember teaching this in my class, my food sovereignty class at United Tribes Technical College. That's where I teach. And my students were total beginners. And, you know, you would think some of the meat that they cut up, it wasn't pretty. And, you know, they were so worried, but it dried just the same as all the other meat. So just to show you guys, because she and I, Lisa and I are leading these harvest camps where we go out and we camp for a couple of days with various communities, and we forage, and then we just make a big old soup at the end with everything we've found. And we usually use dried meat in that soup, or whatever meat we have. This is our bag of dried buffalo meat. And, you know, I can't even tell you guys how many pounds of buffalo roast. How many pounds of buffalo roast do you think this was, dear? Right? I mean, a lot. Yeah. You know, so this is good stuff here. We have air dried bison, beef, deer, and elk. And, you know, any red meat. People have asked, can you air dry pork? Can you air dry chicken? I would say the answer to that is no. I don't know really. I haven't tried it. I've seen chicken jerky online. I've seen but they usually smoke the jerkies, right? This is not jerky. This is air dried meat that is not seasoned. Why don't we season it? What? Oh yeah, you can air dry fish as well. I think it's better smoked, but why don't we season our dried meat? Why didn't we put salt or pepper or something on this meat that's hanging behind me? It's because you don't need to. And when you go to put it in soup, you're going to salt your soup anyway, right? So you don't want that added seasoning in there when you're going to season your soup later. And who knows what you're going to use your dried meat for. I'll actually quickly try to show you guys how to make wasna from your dried meat today as well for the end. We'll work on that as well. So you don't want your wasna seasoned necessarily with salt and pepper. So that's basically why. So, okay. So if you guys have some, a roast in front of you, or is anyone going to be doing this along with me? This is a small one. I've already, oh, cool, Elena. I've already done part of it. Honey, do you want to sit over there since you're so good at it? And I'll give him one. He's way better at it than I am. And the reason I love to show you, I love to do this next to people who are so good at it, is because me not being that great at it, I'm one of those people, I burn stuff on the stove because I walk away and get to doing something else. And so even doing this, I get really distracted. But as you can see, since I'm just talking on and on to you guys, but I like to do this next to people who are really good at it. Number one, because I always learn from them. And number two, because it shows you guys that even if you screw up and you have, this weird looking, holy, filled with holes piece of meat, it will still dry and it all goes into soup or gets ground up to make wasna anyway. So it doesn't have to be pretty. You know what I mean? My husband and my sister, Lisa, they can take a roast. I'll show you, 3 times this size, and they can take their knife and start cutting like this and rolling it over. And they can do this as one long piece of meat, this long to dry. I can't do that, and that's okay. It's okay. It's fine. It doesn't have to be perfect. Okay. So I have this was like a top round roast or something like that, or maybe it was called one of those things called an English roast. Doesn't matter what kind you have. One of the first things you want to do, and I've kind of already done it, is you want to take off that silver skin as much as possible. Like I see this stuff, that sinew, you want to take that off. And I'm gonna put this down here. So I have these couple of roasts. This one still has a little bit on there. If you want to use a fillet knife, see these fillet knives, like for fish, sometimes that's nice at like getting up under the silver skin and taking it off. But if you have a good sharp knife, that works too. Sometimes you'll even have them in the middle there, and that's okay. Do not take the fat off, you guys. This is really lean buffalo meat, and it doesn't have a lot of fat on it, which is, I love the fat. So leave the fat on there, but the silver skin you can take off. And any questions you guys have, feel free to ask them as I'm talking, and then Tasha or Elena or someone, if you guys want to unmute and tell me what the questions are while I'm talking, that's totally fine. But start off with a kind of a cleaned roast.
If you can ever find a lull.
I was going to turn around so they can kind of see how you're getting started. Do you want to? I'm going to turn the laptop around so you can kind of see how Luke's getting started.
You're going to make me mess up.
So the key, all right, do you go with the grain or against the grain of the roast?
I don't know.
Elena, how were you taught, dear? Do you go with, so here's the grain of this meat, okay? It's going this way. So some people would say cut with the grain like this, and some people say cut against the grain like this. A lot of you guys know Josh Dunn. He always goes against the grain. I always go with the grain. And Elena, how were you taught?
My dad taught us to go against the grain. Hey,
that's how Josh does it. Anybody else? Anybody have thoughts on that? So here's the thing. When you go against the grain, the meat is honestly easier to grind up and it's more tender in the soup. It really is. But for some reason, a lot of people like my husband and other people, they go with the grain and it actually ends up as kind of nice little strips in the soup. So it's just personal preference. It makes no difference at all to the way the meat dries. Okay, it's just personal preference. You do the way you were taught, the way you like it, your preference, whether that's with the grain or against the grain, okay? Don't.
Maybe for some things you want it one way and for,
Oh yeah, that's so true. Like Luke was saying, maybe sometimes you want it one way and sometimes you want it the other, and that's okay. So I'm gonna go, I'm gonna go against the grain today, just because I like the way that looks on this roast. And I'm just gonna start off at one end and I put my hand flat against the roast. And I'm starting with a very sharp knife that, was sharpened for me this morning. And I'm just gonna start cutting. Now, let me just show you guys real quick how my sister does it. So I'm impatient, so I just start cutting, right? But Luke and my sister, they make small cuts like this. And then they kind of feel along the barrier here to see. Now you can see I'm already getting holes in mine, so that's not a very good first attempt. I'll go a little deeper here.
That's okay though. Okay, just it's small.
And oh yeah, that's better. And just you can make small cuts. Make sure your meat stays nice and thin. It doesn't have to be paper thin. And if you mess up and it's thicker than what you want, that's okay too. You can deal with that later. But bam, my holy your shorts.
That's how mine look sometimes.
That's okay, sis. It is totally fine. It does not have to be pretty.
It tastes the same.
It tastes the same. It tastes exactly the same. I honest to God, I get all shamed out. Here, hold on. Look, see those huge up here? Do you guys see that? Luke did all those in like less than 5 minutes. And look at mine. But guess what? It dries the same. It cooks the same. It tastes the same. So it's okay. So then I just add it to the drying rack, and that's it's okay. And then you keep trying and you keep practicing. So I'm gonna now like I said, sometimes I get impatient, and I just start cutting. So I'm just gonna show you guys what happens when I do this. And I'm like, okay, well, actually this one's probably a little better. Sometimes I think the slower I go, the less good of a job I do, okay? But so here, I got a piece here, and this piece doesn't look too bad, but it's a little thick in some spots. So what do I do if I think it's a little thick in some spots? This is all I do. And Luke taught me this as well. I just take my sharp knife and I make really small cuts into the thicker part. Kind of like an accordion or whatever. I just make small cuts into there. I try not to go all the way through. Just small cuts like that. Then I turn it over and I do the same thing on the other side, maybe in a different direction. The key is that you want air to be able to get to those spots. So that's fine. This will dry, even though it was a little too thick at first, it will dry perfectly just like this. Luke.
Here, I was just telling my daughter, I said, look at all those perfect pieces back there. I said, I could never do it that good, so I'm glad. Okay.
No. That's a lot of practice. And it takes time to be able to get it like that. And the thing is it doesn't just take time, it takes patience. Luke is over here making one little cut at a time. And then he checks the thickness. One little cut, checks. One little, I ain't got time for that. I ain't got the patience for that, you know? So I just do my cuts and then it's just not as pretty, but like, you know, like I said, that's okay. Luke and I were talking the other day about something. I can't remember what, it was his birthday. So I was going to bake for him. Right. And like, I was like, but I got to do a boxed cake and, you know, some frosting from a can because I am not a baker. I was like, I'm smart and I'm nice, but I can't bake. You know, we all have our gifts. So that's okay. I'm not great at cutting meat, but I can sure go out there and harvest tons and tons of plants, you know, and medicine and food and all of that stuff. So that's my gift. But, you know, I still contribute to this. And it's still like my husband and I sit here and we laugh and we sit here with our friends, or I sit here with my girlfriends and we tell stories and we laugh and we drink, you know, we drink our coffee. And, you know, it's totally great. It's such a fun family activity. We get all of our kids involved. And, you know, our 5-year-old will come up to this tomorrow and he'll touch it. He's like, oh, we got to flip it over, you know? And sometimes you don't even have to flip it. We just keep it just like that. But he'll know, you know, if it's kind of thick, he'll flip it over the slices of meat so that it dries a little faster and more evenly. So, you know, you get the whole family involved. It's such a fun activity. And, you know, it's so delicious. So Brienne was asking if there's a particular kind of knife you use. No, we first of all get a lot of our knives at like the thrift store and stuff. You know, that's just like the best place to get them. It doesn't matter what kind of knife you're using necessarily. What matters is that it's sharp and you have someone sharpening your knife or you're sharpening your knife. That's another thing I'm not good at. You know, I'm 47. I'm not prideful. I can tell you when I'm good at things and when I'm not good at things, and I'm not good at sharpening knives. So, you know, my husband sharpened this one this morning and that's great. But like I was showing you, sometimes like here, I'll show you guys. I have this fillet knife, you know, this is a cheap, like maybe $15 fillet knife for fish. Rapella knife. We get them at just like Runnings or Shields or something like that. And it is great for filleting fish, you guys. So if you go fishing, you get some walleye or some catfish or something, these are great. So, you know, I was telling him, I wonder what that's like for cutting meat. Well, it's not all that sharp, but it's great for removing the silver skin. But, you know, if you sharpen this, it'd probably be pretty good. I'm just trying it here. It's not great. Like I can feel the resistance. If I'm going with the green, it's easier. You know, but like, look at how, like, even me not being great at this, I'm still getting by with this not too sharp knife, you know, still got a piece of meat that I'm cutting there, you know? So I'm going to switch back. So now I'm going to cut this one with the grain, you know, instead of against it, and see what happens.
Brienne said go put her butter knife away then.
Butter knife. That would take a while. So that one's too thick, but that's okay. So I cut this one with the grain, okay? I cut it at the same line. I followed the line of the meat. And you know, it looks just like the other ones. It's just the same. But when you go to like grind this up to make wasna later, wasna, for those of you who have never had it before, wasna is, wasna is the dried meat. It's kind of, I think in other languages, they call it pemmican, but it's dried meat that's mixed with fat and berries. Hey, could you go melt that fat for me? Oh, thank you. So this one is too thick in this spot, so I'm just gonna make lines here. You guys can tell I have to do this a lot, right? And this is why I am not embarrassed to, like, even though I'm not great at this, I'm not embarrassed to get on here and do this with you guys, because we do this all the time, and I know I'm not the best, and that's okay. But, you know, maybe you guys can train your kids to be like the best. Did you guys ever see there's a picture of a guy, I cannot remember his name, but there was a picture of him, and he had a big piece of dried meat that was literally like the size of a couch cushion, you know, that he had cut himself. And, you know, all the Native women I know were posting it like, oh my God, you know, like that guy's super awesome, you know, and he, you know, he was fine, but I think that, you know, that skill made him even sexier than, than what he normally would have seemed, you know? So how thick are you shooting for? I'm going to use one of Luke's examples for that. Can you cut that one? Okay. So here's the roast that he has, you know, he's just kind of cutting that out. So Brienne, check this out. So it's less, you know.
What do we measure with?
I don't know what to measure with.
Yeah,
you know, it's not paper thin. It's like compared to a lighter, maybe, you know, it's like one third of the width of a lighter. That's what you're shooting for right there, you know? Yeah, and he even got, you know, Luke even got some thick spots. See that part? That's probably a 1/4 of an inch there, you know, and that's okay. Even that 1/4 of an inch, so an 1/8 of an inch. An 1/8 of an inch is probably what you're shooting for, okay? But even if you get up to a 1/4, that'll still dry, especially if you put some of those cuts in there, those notches I was talking about. Piece of cake, you know, no problem at all.
Other question we had was recommendations for keeping flies away while the meat is drying.
Okay, so we dry ours inside, so we never have that problem. The other place that we dry meat and squash, okay, actually we still have a squash somewhere. You should grab one and I'll show them how to dry that real quick. Just since we're here, you know, might as well. And then can I have that towel? Get the meat off my hands. Okay. Sometimes we hang a rope in our garage, just all through the top of our garage from one side to the other. We secure it in our garage with like those hooks, you know, and we hang a rope, and then we just dry a whole bunch of meat and squash in our garage, you know. Like there were some flies in our garage last year, and we just hung a fly paper, and it was never a problem. Like we never had a bunch, it's not like there were eggs or anything like that, fly eggs on our meat or our squash. I am shocked at how little of a problem it is, to be honest with you. Now, if you're drying meat outside, something that my husband's family does is they set up one of those mosquito screens, those mosquito tents, and they will put their drying rack inside of that. And it works great to keep off the flies and other bugs. What else? So you can set up just a mosquito tent or whatever outside.
Go old school and just get little kids there with switches.
Yeah, he said you could be really old school and have the kids just there constantly. Great exercise, keeping the flies away. And I will say one thing, back in the day, I've talked to a lot of people about this. Back in the day, before there were like cattle ranches and stuff, you didn't have as much of a problem with flies, you know? So these days it's a little more of a problem, and that's okay. If you're really concerned and you're drying meat outside and you don't have a mosquito tent, you can start a fire and just make it a smoky one. And the kind of cool thing is one year we were drying meat on racks outside, no mosquito screen, started a fire and put a bunch of sagebrush on the fire. And the meat kind of had this background flavor of sage. It was pretty cool. Look at how it's moving because Luke is moving the table when he's cutting the meat. My screen is moving. But you know, you can do that. But it's really, if you dry it inside, it's not that much of a problem as long as you kind of keep your screens closed and stuff in your house. Any other questions?
No, not right now.
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna set this aside real quick. And you know, that's it, you guys. That's air drying meat. In 3 days, let me grab, so here's my, in 3 days, it'll be like this. This is after 3 days. See, that's how dry it'll be. That's just air dried. What do you store it in? We just use a pillowcase. This isn't one that we used. This is a new pillowcase. You don't want your husband's greasy head on the pillowcase that you put your meat in. But yeah, you know, we just store in a pillowcase, a tea towel sack, an old bluebird flower sack is always fun and nice, and it looks cute. And you know, like my sister, she hangs those bluebird flower sacks in her house full of dried meat as like kind of decoration. I'm like, oh, not that sacred. So you know, that's all you do, and then you have dried meat around all the time. You guys, I have to tell you something. Can you bring that? Where's that? I had that jar of bacon grease around. Yes, bacon grease. So my sister, she takes, so this is dried meat, just the regular dried meat. And I roasted it off in the oven for about 5 minutes. So I just took the dried meat, put it on a baking sheet and put it in the oven for a couple minutes. So one of Lisa's favorite snacks that she taught me is to take pieces of dried meat and dip it in the buffalo fat and eat it just like that. So it's just like meat and fat, which is like seriously the most Lakota thing I've ever seen in my life, right? But she got me hooked on it. And so now you know, we save our bacon grease. One of my favorite snacks, you know, like after a workout, because fat is not the enemy for us, right? It's carbs usually. So I do that. Oh my God. It's so good. It's ridiculous. I do bacon fat. She does buffalo fat. I'm just not that traditional. But so good. Just that roasted dried meat, you guys, is so amazing. But remember, you can put this into soups, put it into stews, take it as a hunting snack or whatever. But one of the other things you can do with it is make wasna or pemmican, right? So you take, do I have a little bit of time?
Yeah, we've got about 20 minutes left.
Oh, great. Good. Okay, so we have this cool mortar and pestle grinder that our friend made. I'm gonna grab that. We have some dried choke cherry patties. So every year we dry choke cherries and plums in patties. I have a jar of them here. Just want to show you guys. So here's a choke cherry patty, for example. Can you guys kind of, there the light goes. Can you guys see that? This is just a choke cherry patty that we dried. You guys know how I ground up my choke cherries last year? I put them in my Ninja, my Ninja blender, and just ground them up like that because I just didn't have time to mash them all with this. And it worked fine. So I'm taking some of my dried choke cherry patties and I'm just kind of breaking it up into pieces, putting it into my mortar and pestle. Then I'm taking my crushing stone and I'm grinding up those pieces of dried choke cherry patty. Now you can do this with any berry you want, okay? We're doing choke cherry today just because, you know, we have those and we like the flavor, but we're just grinding up those choke cherry patties a little more. If you wanted to use just some store-bought dried cranberries or dried cherries, you could absolutely do that as well. It doesn't have to be this. If you want to use raisins, if that's what you have, you know, you have some raisins in a box, use those, okay? It doesn't have to be choke cherries. But this, you know, I'll show you guys how to make it as old way as possible. So we have our dried choke cherry patty in here. Then I'm gonna just add a piece of that dried buffalo meat, you know? I'm just gonna break off pieces. That one's kind of tough. Break off some and add that in here. Break it up a little. And then I'm gonna grind that up. And you'll see, you know, you can take the choke cherries out first if you want, but you don't have to. But just look, see how that gets ground up almost into a powder? That's just that dried meat. And, okay, so easy. If you want to like put this on a clean cutting board, instead of using mortar and pestle, you just want to put it on a clean cutting board. This one has dried meat or fresh meat all over it, so you don't want to use this. You could just do this on a cutting board, a flat surface too. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. But I'm just grinding these up. You know, you want them to be, some people even like, my friend TPZ Young, she puts them into a food processor and she just grinds it all up into a powder, even the meat. And that's fine too.
And Loretta taught us to use either just like an old blender or a coffee grinder.
Yes, a coffee grinder would be so nice. Is that for the choke cherries and the meat?
No, I guess that was Wagamiza, but I wonder if you could use that. She said you could, I just didn't try it yet.
Yeah, no, that's great. That sounds amazing. And you know, like some people will just kind of shred it even with a knife. They'll just chop it up fine, but we shred it, you know, like this. So here I have my meat ground up and my choke cherries ground up. That's too much choke cherries for that amount of meat, but I have limited time. And then we have some buffalo fat. This is like real buffalo fat that friends of ours rendered for us, and we melted it down, and we'll just add some of that. You know, you can add as much or as little. Some people like it fattier and wetter with the fat, and some people like it drier. And then you know, you just take, I don't have a spoon with me, so I'll just use my hands. You just take it and you just mash them up together. If you want to, like, look what, oh, you want it more than that? A little more fat? Look like it's a little more fat in there, so we'll add a little more fat.
One question is, do you use the brown fat from the hump or any fat off the buffalo?
Any fat. This particular fat we're using today is kidney fat. And you can use the fat off the hump. Luke really likes hump fat. Okay, now what he's doing is he's sprinkling maple sugar on there because he likes it sweeter. That's, and for a lot of people, that's traditional, you know, but like our friend boils his maple sap down every year to make sugar. So this is 100% maple sugar. So we added a little bit of that to the wasna, and I'll just mix that in by hand. You guys, so like the thing is like you can form this into balls afterward. And, you know, maybe make it, well, we'd have to make it, add more fat probably to form it into balls. But normally what we do is we just put it in a bag like this and we take it out with us. But right here, this is literally, even as a non-Lakota, I'm telling you guys, this is the world's most perfect food. This, you know, wasna is the world's most perfect food. This has everything you need. It has the carbohydrates, it has the vitamin C. You know, I mean, it has the phytonutrients, it has the protein, it has the complex carbohydrates. This is everything you need, and it will last basically forever. Yeah, all the micronutrients you need, all the vitamins, everything. And it will last basically forever. If I put this, because of the fat in there, the fat is preserving it. And even the sugars from the berries are preserving it. Yeah. And so, you know, you just take it. Oh my God. I can't keep them from reaching in there. This will be gone in 5 minutes. This is a really good batch. It is delicious. This is the, you know, I eat this and I feel nourished. It has everything that I need. We can take it anywhere we want. It's an amazing survival food. It's a ceremony food, all that stuff, but it's just absolutely fantastic. So okay, so you dried the meat, you just cut it thin, you know, to hell with your mistakes, you know, you just deal with them, dry your meat, hang it up, let it dry for a few days, okay? You can eat it just like that, eat the dried meat, put it in soup, whatever. You can make wasna with it by grinding the meat up, you know, roast it a little first, just because it adds to the flavor and makes it easier to grind. You know, add some berries and fat to it, whatever berries, whatever fat you have laying around. For our wedding, we made wasna with bacon grease and it was delicious. You know, so do that. You know, there's so many things you can do. But you know, you can dry anything. This is our last butternut squash from last year, still sitting around our house. And we love to dry squash as well. And so I'm gonna show you guys how to dry this butternut squash. Again, you guys know my knife skills are not the best, but I'm gonna show you guys as close to as possible how we do it. Okay, so I just take this and I set it up. I start up at the stem end, and then I just start cutting around in a circle. And you know, this will probably break on me. That's okay. I'm not gonna be shamed out by it, but I just try to cut in a spiral as far down as possible. That's too thick right there, but it'll still dry. What you're going for is about like this, okay? So what is that, about an inch, inch and a quarter? But if it's okay if it gets too much, you know, it'll still dry. Let me see, let me take my time with this a little more, just so I can demonstrate for you guys. You know, and you just watch it as you go around. This is our very last winter squash from our garden last year. It's been sitting in a basket. We use winter squash like all the time. I'm just guiding this through. Where it gets difficult with butternut squash is down at the bottom, because you got to cut all the way through. See? We do this with almost all of our squash, but we always leave a few, because, you know, sometimes you want a baked squash, right? You know, Luke always said that he didn't grow up eating squash the traditional way. He grew up eating squash cut open and then has brown sugar and cinnamon on it, you know? But, you know, squash is like the best soup ingredient in the universe, in my opinion. So if you want to, like, if you feel like this is getting tippy, like if you're doing this with a zucchini and you feel like it's getting tippy, you can have someone hold the top of it, but also let it spin at the same time. Mine's not getting too tippy, but. Getting down to the bottom. So this is like an old school way to dry squash, and you guys, it works amazing. And then you just put a string or a dowel through it. Keep turning. Oh, is it gonna break? Did it break? Oh no, it didn't break, okay. So, sorry, I'm probably going over time here, but I just wanna show you guys, turn, turn, turn.
You're still good on time. You still have 8 minutes.
Yeah, you guys, like, okay, because we have all this dried meat and this dried squash around our house, I always say I feel rich. You know what I mean? Like, here, hold on, let me. Okay, I would say when I have dried meat and dried squash around, I feel rich. I feel like secure. And when we talk about food security, so when we talk about food sovereignty, you know, we're talking about, hey, we have access to traditional foods. We have access to healthy foods, stuff like that. When people are talking about food security, they're talking about just having access to enough calories. So like food security to me isn't the goal, right? I don't just want enough calories. You know, I can eat a whole lot of chicken nuggets and French fries, but is that food sovereignty? No, because chicken nuggets and French fries are only going to give you calories. They don't feed you spiritually. They don't feed you mentally. You know, you don't have a connection, a genetic connection that goes way back with chicken nuggets and French fries. Even though those things, you know, Brianne, I'm gonna go to McDonald's and get some of that BTS meal later today. So, okay, so here's a dried butternut squash. Like, how long did that take me? Or I cut butternut squash. All I'll do is I'll put a string through here. You know, maybe if I'm feeling like it, I don't have to, but maybe if I'm feeling like it, I'll just kind of take my finger and I'll run it around in here and get the, you know, the stringy stuff off and get the seeds. See, I still have the seeds in there. So I can just pull those seeds out. I can just take my time, or I can even use like a knife and kind of cut around and get those out, but I don't really have to. It'll still dry like this. So, hi, Red Rock. So just, you know, put a string through here and hang it up. And in about 4 or 5 days, you'll have perfectly dried squash for your soup. It'll last all winter long. It has a velvety texture that, in my opinion, is way more delicious than just fresh squash even. It intensifies the flavor, you know? So it's just great to have around. Sorry. Sorry. Okay.
Roll it down the stairs, Age.
It's fun to play with. And you can do this with any squash. You know that time of year when you guys are getting all of like the zucchini and everyone is like, oh gosh, I have way too much zucchini, right? Spiralize the zucchini like this and hang it up to dry. And all winter long, you can have zucchini, just throw it in your soup, you know? I'll tell you, like, guys, my favorite recipe for dried zucchini is actually to make like a, you know how you make like a, what's that thing called with the sliced potatoes and the ham? Scallop potatoes. Instead, do that same thing with dried zucchini. So you make like scalloped dried zucchini with like the cheese and the cream and the ham. Oh my God, it's so good. And your kids will never know it's zucchini instead of the potatoes. They'll never know. It like has just like a really great texture when you do that. So yeah. So, you know, you like think about it, you guys. I've only been visiting with you for an hour. We have enough dried meat and now a full dried squash. This is probably enough for my family of 5 people to last us like a week. We did that in an hour. Food preservation. It's the key to food sovereignty, you know? It's the best thing in the world. And it really will. It will like imagine like my kids, you know, and your kids hearing about the pandemic, hearing about like, oh gosh, you know, what are we going to do? The grocery stores aren't going to be open. Oh, the grocery store shelves are empty. Your kids will never feel insecure when they hear that stuff because they'll know, oh, that's all right. We have a bunch of dried meat, dried squash, you know, in the cupboard. We're good. We're okay. You know, and it makes all the difference in their mental and emotional health to have that kind of security, that kind of food sovereignty. So thank you guys so much. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them.
That's amazing. I think, you know, we talked about, you know, the reason we wanted a demonstration like this is because I think for a lot of people, myself included, it's intimidating to think of like, am I doing it right? Am I just wasting this? Is it not going to work? And so I really appreciate how you just said, you know, it's okay. It's not going to be perfect. It's still going to work out. And so, yeah, I really appreciate that. And the whole piece about security, food security versus food sovereignty is really a good point too, because I think we sometimes focus on ensuring we have just access to food, but is that food relevant to us and our diets and what we should be eating and feeding ourselves, like you said, spiritually? So those are all really important topics, and it really leads well into the discussion that we're going to have next too. So thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions for them before we wrap this one up? I think there was just a lot of really good information.
Again, should we do a collective agisha?
Yeah.
You guys are so welcome. Thank you so much for having me. If you have any questions or if you're ever doing it and you feel like, oh my God, am I doing this right? Or this is too thick, or I screwed it up, send me a message and we'll FaceTime and I'll tell you how to fix it. There's no unfixable mistake. Not in life, not in food.
And I did share the Facebook page for, I know you talked about the community harvesting camps that you guys are doing. So if people are interested in where they're going or what they're doing, you guys can check that out. And if you're coming to Standing Rock, let us know.
I will, yes. Awesome. Thanks guys so much.
And then we're going to have, I don't know how long you're staying on, Linda, but we're going to have some, at the end, one of the requests we had from yesterday was just to have some open discussion time, but we also planned maybe some more breakout sessions and to give everybody an opportunity to pick what breakout room they want to go into. And we put food preservation as a breakout session. So if you can hang around or if you can come back later, that would be awesome to have you involved in that too.
I will do that.
All right.
Thank you so much, Linda. That's really important. in our next conversation, as we're going to discuss policy, because we don't want it to be, you know, just this boring talk about policy, but we want to really talk about the things that Linda was discussing, like how important it is for us to make that connection. And so we wanted to start off, I know our time is a little, we have about, anyways, we have a little bit, but we're going to share this video with you. I know this is one of the origin stories of the Lakota Dakota people, but we wanted to share it with you to give an understanding about the ways that our communities believe and think and feel, and in particular with the Buffalo Nation. And so we're going to play this. It's about 13 minutes, and we thought about just doing a quick overview, but we're going to play it.
Apewi. You know, all ethnic groups around the world have an idea or a belief as to where did everything come from? Where did this world come from? Where did the sun come from? Where did the moon? Where did the trees come from? Where did I come from? And they have a belief of creation or evolution or a combination of the two. But they have some sort of idea where everything came from. Well, as Lakota people, we still talk about our origin story on where everything came from. We talk about an entity we refer to as Ia. Ia was a power, a massive power, very, very powerful that nothing else could exist except for Ia. Ia at a point took a part of itself and began to form this orb, and squeezing tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter until what oozed out of it looked like it's blue blood, leaving a half hard, brittle body. And Ia called it Maka, earth. Maka existed in total darkness, questioning Ia. What's my purpose? What's my reason for being here? Why am I here? Is there anything else? Ia took other parts of itself and created Apewi, the sun. Hawewi, the moon. Wichakpi Oyate, the stars, the galaxies, the universe, and put everything in correlation with itself. And time went on. Time went on. But at a point, Maka complained. When I face to Apewi, it becomes very hot, uncomfortable. And so when I turn and I face to Hawewi, the moon, it becomes dark, like it's cold. Could you give me a covering? Something to protect myself. Ia, in counsel with the other entities of itself, told Maka, if we give you a covering, you must promise to bring forth life and to nourish it. Maka promised. And so life went on. Life went on for time, a very long time. But at a point, life became ugly, very corrupt, senseless destruction, killing. Maka said, this is not the way that life is intended to be upon me. I must cleanse. Now try to imagine all of these catastrophes happening all at the same time. Earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, hurricanes, hundreds of them, hundreds of tornadoes. Maka, this one half landmass, shaking and shaking and shaking, shaking so hard that the one half landmass broke apart, separating the peoples into the different continents. And life went on. But at a point again, eons of time later, life again became very corrupt. Very corrupt. Because I must cleanse again. Those of you that are keeping the ways of life as intended to be, come deep down inside me, where I may protect you. Again, these catastrophes. And it came in the form of the Ice Age, changing the surface of the world. When the ice melted back, leaving lakes, bodies of water everywhere. Small lakes, rivers. In this beautiful area today, known as the Black Hills, Chesapa, in the southern Black Hills, we have a trickster in our culture. We call him Iktomi. Iktomi was walking around in the Black Hills. He was wandering around. It was an era of giants, dinosaurs, and bears. Iktomi heard this heavy breathing and took to hiding under the bushes because he thought he was going to be trampled. But he didn't hear the thrashing of trees and shrubs. And just a heavy breathing. Now curiosity always gets the best of Iktomi. So he came out from hiding, listening to that breathing. He followed it. And he came upon this opening in the ground. Peered down into that opening and felt the wind come up and the wind being drawn back in. He looked down into the opening and he saw the subterranean species living deep down in that hold, calling down to them, "Come up here, come here." But they were afraid. No, go away, leave us alone. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm not going to hurt you. Come up here. I want to show you something. One brave young individual says, "I'll go see." And this individual came out, the very first one to come back to the surface of the world. And we call him Tokahe, which means the very first. Came back to the surface of the world. Iktomi says, "Look about you. Look around you. Look around you. Look how beautiful it is. Feel the warmth of that sun. Isn't that nice? Feel that cool breeze. Here, try some of these choke cherries. Eat some of these plums. Aren't they delicious? Lay down in that soft green grass. That little stream of water, taste that. It's wonderful. And why do you want to live deep down in that dark hole when you can come up and you can have all of this? Go get your people. I'm going to go find my friend. We're going to prepare a grand feast for you. Bring your people up here." Tokai says, "I will do it." He goes back down into the hole, gathers the people together, and he talks about everything he experienced, how wonderful it was. But an elder is there. An elder says, "Tokai, there is danger. You do not know all of the danger that lurks up there." Tokai says, "No, I've seen it all. It's wonderful. We must get ready to go." The elder says, "He's being very foolish. I must go ahead and make plans for when danger strikes." And so the old man sneaks away from the group, comes out of the opening, and transforms into the Buffalo Nation. Kokaya and the rest, they emerge out. And Iktomi is there with his companion, Anugite, the double-faced woman. Very, very beautiful on one side. But she would not let the people see her on this side. She served them, she talked to them, always on one side. And at a point, after the people had gorged themselves, they ate. They were in the water swimming. They were sleeping in the grass. sunbathing, you might say. And then Anugita turns, and she shows the ugliness, the hideous side of her. And the people panic, they scream. They run back to the opening. But their bodies had grown because of all the food they had eaten, all of the air that they breathed in, the water, their bodies grew. They couldn't fit back into that opening to go back down. Now Iktomi loves to trick people. And when he sees them make a mistake, or he sees them hurt themselves, or when they're in misery, he laughs. He laughs. I did it. They're trapped on the surface. I did it. I got him. He's rolling on the ground laughing. Buffalo Nation comes forward. Buffalo Nation says, we are here for you. All that we are is for you. We are your food. We're your shelter, your medicine, your tools. And we became known as the Buffalo people, following the buffalo, relying upon the buffalo for everything. And the Buffalo Nation has never let us down. Because as we began to adopt and adapt to living on the surface of the world again, you might say we became a little overbearing, taken more than we needed, taken without respect, taken without giving anything back. The four-leggeds, the winged ones, they cut off communication with us. He says, it's because of these two-leggeds that the world had to cleanse twice. Maybe this would be a better world without these two-leggeds. We should get rid of them. Yes, let's do it. We can do it. We can send into these two-leggeds all of these sicknesses, all of these diseases, and wipe them out, as they were going to proceed to do so. Underneath them, the plant life. The plant life said, it is not up to them to decide who lives or who dies. For every sickness, every illness, they send into the two-leggeds. We have a root, we have a medicine, an herb. And so the balance was kept, and life went on. Life went on for a time again. But again, as two-leggeds, we became overbearing. Again, no respect, no honor. Creation. What are we going to do about these two-leggeds? Oh, Buffalo Nation, Buffalo Nation, you said you would be responsible for these two-leggeds. Look at the way they are. What are you going to do? Buffalo Nation said, we will take care of it. What are you going to do? You cannot go to them the way you are. They're very destructive. They'll kill you. They'll eat you. They consume everything. What are you going to do? Buffalo Nation said, we will take care of it. So at a point in time, they sent to us from the Buffalo Nation, the white buffalo calf woman, bringing to us the sacred pipe to remind us that there is to be a spiritual connection of what is on this earth is in the stars. It's in the universe, and what's in the stars is on this earth, and the spiritual connection must be kept. Remember that story. Thank you. You know,
so we wanted to share that to, she was emotional watching it, but we wanted to share that to just share how many teachings are in each and every one of our stories. And a lot of times there's confusion about creation versus reemergent stories, but they all come together in really beautiful ways. And so we had been taken care of by the buffalo, and that's what Lakota, Dakota, Nakota people believe. And there was always there was always a reason for every single part of it. And so for us to learn about what those uses are and to honor them and to take care of them, I think is really a task that all of us have to think about again. And I'm not sure if my dad or anybody else is in. I think my dad might still be on. Dad, do you want to share any of the things that you remember about ways that you used the buffalo, or and it might have been in your older years too, because one of the things that was really important for us to share that story is to share about how our people believed in the importance of these connections to the buffalo, to the plants, but through settler colonialism, they knew exactly the ways to rip those away from us. And so when I was visiting with my dad and other elders, they talked about buffalo not being something that was like always readily available. It was like every now and then, where I'm assuming, you know, their grandparents or the grandparents before them grew up, you know, just all hunting buffalo and having a way of directly working with them. But after we got put on reservations, the buffalo was something that wasn't as abundant. And so I don't know, Dad, if you wanted to share or.
If your dad's getting ready to come on, I can share a little bit about what I've learned about buffalo and the ecosystem and our relationship with them. Basically, over time, when the grass is growing, the buffalo, they come and they thin it. And once they thin the grass, the roots are like, we need help. And it sends out these sugars, which gets all the microorganisms to feed in these colonies. And so the buffalo are helping the plants evolve stronger root systems, which give it the next growth spurt, more energy production. So as we move the buffaloes through the prairie while we were hunting them, we're actually like pruning the land in a healthy way to encourage growth and fertility. And so when they were creating the railroads, there was like these mass buffalo huntings, like, you know, trophy competitions to kill as many as they could, because it would not only starve us, but that also changed the land a lot without having that relationship of the buffalo being moved through the ecosystem seasonally. At one point, these scientists, I think it was, I don't know if it was NDSU, but basically they checked the plains, and the root systems that were in the grasslands are, you know, maybe 50 to 200 feet below the soil surface. And you can't even see that above ground, but that was, it's helping pull more carbon from the atmosphere than trees. So that's a unique relationship in, I guess, how now we have a carbon heavy, people talk about greenhouse gases and climate change, but the buffalo and the grasslands relationship was helping pull that greenhouse gases from the atmosphere and storing it into the soil. So the more we can encourage more of these holistic herd managements in our food production is best. It's maybe an overshare, but I geek out about buffalo.
Well, I think that's a really good, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say that's a really good example of, you know, what we know through our teachings about reciprocal relationships, you know, between us and, you know, and the four-legged and the plants, you know, we all have a reciprocal relationship to each other. And I feel like, you know, a colonial mindset is that it's there for the taking, for us to take it, for us to use it, but we also have a responsibility to give back and to be responsible with how we harvest or how we use those things. And so that's why I like this image too, is it's showing that if we were going to you know, use our relatives, we were mindful of that and used every piece and everything that we could no wasting, you know, because that was our responsibility to be mindful of those things.
Yeah, and I think like the obviously we couldn't tell it as beautifully as Lexi Duane shared in that video, and that's found on the wolakotaproject.org. There's so many beautiful resources on there. But the ways that he continues to reiterate like how arrogant that the two-legged get in our belief that we can control, you know, all of these things. And so I think like really thinking about what are those protocols when we harvest, what are those protocols when we work with animals, when we work with the land, when we work with any type of plant relatives, just to be mindful of that, and for us to not think that that we don't play a part in it, and also to like really push the connections that we have to make with it. And so whether this is, you know, your creation story or similar, or there's another creation story that you carry within your own nation, that it's all true, you know, it's all stuff that we believe and we know to be true. And so do you want to go to the next one? And the next one is just a little creation that we have here on Standing Rock. But Ksa was actually, who's the spirit of wisdom, is actually who ends up being Iktomi. And so if you like think deeper into what all of these, you know, stories and creations mean to us, that each of these spirits that we know, such as, you know, Ksa, who is later becomes Iktomi, you know, Wakia, who is Iktomi's father, Mahbiato is the sky, that they all loved us and creation so much that they created these things for us. And us as humans have to figure out, or not humans, two-leggeds have to figure out what that relationship is, so that we could start being respectful and mindful of seeing these more than human relatives as relatives, and start taking care of the land and the plants, because they were all you know, that all of these spiritual connections that we have, they were given to us and provided to us by these powerful beings in our universe. And so just to really dig deep, and so that's why we keep doing like the deep visualizations and meditations and movement exercises, to really start thinking about what our role is in the larger movement of food sovereignty, because it's not just thinking of like going to Lowe's and buying some, you know, seeds or whatever, and if that's, you know, if that's a start for you all, I'm not bashing that, but it's deeper than that. It's really thinking of what our responsibility is to each other, to the land, to the plants, to the animals, and not thinking that we know it all, and not thinking that we can just you know, grow and take and pick and do all these things without having that responsibility of praying for it and asking for these things in a good way, and taking care of them in a good way. And so you can go to the next one, Tasha. And so these were just some, you know, some of the original foods of the Dakota. Like I said, tratranka was something that wasn't quite freely given when our people first got put on reservations, but because of movements towards you know, bringing buffalo back, even there are community members in almost all of our reservations, or community organizations that are bringing back buffalo, and our game and fish departments are offering buffalo for ceremonies and for things that we might need. And so really thinking of how we can reconnect and make that relationship with the buffalo again. And that's just like what Linda was sharing with us earlier about just doing it. Just, you know, what if you happen to get a buffalo leg, then figure out how to boil the hooves, or you know, make cups or bowls, or work with the sinew, use the bones, you know, bake the bones and make bone broth soup. There's so many beautiful things about each parts of the animal that we could be learning about and diving deep into. And I'll just go through them again, but Trachja, there's Tratokala, Chapa, Beaver, Zicha. My dad shared yesterday how he was a 7-year-old and his task was to go get, you know, Zicha for his family when he was little. And so, and Timsila, Uta, they used, you know, a bunch of acorns. Timsila Prejuta, which is milkweed. Yapi-zapi, Iechecha, dandelions, which we know are so beneficial in all kinds of ways. Khanta, Wipazutka, which is June berries. Mashtincha, Pute, I believe are buffalo berries, and Chapcha, which is choke cherries. And so these were all foods that were abundant and natural for us. But there's a disconnect because not very many people, when we were doing the Chashasha Revitalization Project, one of our participants said that they had never even seen or tasted a Juneberry. And I don't think I would have either if my husband's tribe didn't, they built their own Juneberry, I don't know what you would call it, orchard, I don't know. But they just have rows of Juneberries that they plant, and they have like a watering system, and it's just open to community members. And so every year we go pick those, but I don't know where they are, you know, naturally around Standing Rock, or if they are. I know that choke cherries are, plums are, but they're, again, those are things that are scarce to our communities. And so really thinking about ways that we, not, you know, the Chashasha Revitalization Project, in thinking of what harvesting protocols look like and thinking of what it means to be in good relationship with those plants. It wasn't just specifically for Chashasha. It was for us to like have a broader view of how we deal with all of our plant relatives and how we interact with them in ways that are reciprocal, like Tasha said. Okay, Tasha.
Yeah, so when we talk about, I think one of the, we're going to highlight a specific community and kind of their way of thinking about our responsibility and how complex the idea of food sovereignty is. One of the things when we look at tribal communities, we know, I mean, in every community, I think, but we know that all of these things are interconnected. So like we've mentioned a few times, you know, it's not just about starting a garden, even though that's a great place to start, we know that everything is connected. And so, and then another part of food sovereignty is that you know, the word sovereignty, meaning that we have control over that. So we are taking back control over what our food systems look like and understanding that they're all connected. So this comes from our relatives in the Swinomish, our Swinomish relatives, and they have developed what they call the Indigenous Health Indicators. And really what this is a set of community scale, non-physical aspects of health that are integral to the Coast Salish health and well-being. So they're determining what they interpret or what they perceive as being healthy or well. They're determining those components. And so it provides a template for resource-based communities to tailor in order to suit their own unique connections and health priorities. And so this is just a visual representation of how connected everything is. So it's not, you know, it's not just one component that you work on. You're working on self-determination and being able to have control over what that looks like. You're working on, you know, cultural uses. You're working on, you know, your natural resources. So ensuring that those are protected and that they're able to be utilized. You know, addressing the resiliency of your communities, making sure that you're mentally and emotionally and spiritually well, your identity is intact. Looking at education, so those teachings, I know that came up yesterday too, is that we know that those teachings are in our communities, that people carry those teachings. How do we connect with them and ensure that we have access to that? And that we're listening to them. Sometimes that's the simple thing that we miss, is we just have to listen. And then community connection. So making sure that we're establishing those shared responsibilities that we have to our nations, to our communities. You know, a long time ago, we did have, they weren't policies on paper, but we definitely had systems in place for us to, for everybody to understand where they fit, what their role was, what their responsibility was to contribute to the overall health and wellness of their community. And so we just wanted to, that's kind of why we pulled in the topic of policy, was because we know that as communities, as tribes, as a nation, we are impacted, our behaviors are impacted by various levels of things. So there's, you know, we have the individual level where we make decisions for ourselves, right? We decide what we eat, what we do, how we live, but we also have, you know, our family units. Those are also, that's another layer. You know, we have, there's expectations, I guess, and rules within our families of how we are. And then you get even bigger into our communities. And so, and that's kind of where like policy comes in, is that we need to ensure that we're setting up these systems that are conducive to the things that we want to do to take back our food system. So we want to make sure that there's things in place that are helping us to move in that direction, because as much as we know that there's individual responsibilities, there's also community responsibilities to move in that direction. And so we just wanted to highlight, like I said, one of the communities that are doing that and show an example of what that can look like.
And that this indicator really informs the policies that are made within that community. And so I know it's like, it's awful that we have to start moving, you know, have to be doing policies and have to have things like this to back it up. But that's just the, you know, it's the world we're living in right now. So when we collectively say that these are, you know, and ours may look different, a lot of them are similar. But when we have these saying that these are really important to our community, these are things that we need to start thinking of, then we'll have this to back up policy that we push in the future.
Yes, and so when we talk about, you know, kind of going back to the title of our session here, you know, one of the word Iglúha, you know, that means to belong to one's own self. And why we're focusing on that is because our communities, our indigenous communities, have had our sovereignty taken away and then given back, right, when it's convenient. So policy has impacted our health and well-being intentionally, have taken things away from us, and then slowly through different acts or laws, you know, small things have been given back to us, but definitely there still continues to be oversight and control over our people and how we operate. And so when we talk about sovereignty, we mean that we really want to take back that right to conduct ourselves in the way that is in alignment with our Dakota and Lakota values, or whatever values you have in your community. We want to make sure that we're, you know, or indigenous overall, we're aligning with those values and beliefs. So when we talk about food sovereignty, where it's much deeper than just ensuring we have access to foods. It's really taking back control of the way that we think will support healthy, thriving communities, and that those systems are meeting the needs of our communities. And so some of the examples of policies are things that we want to encourage, and these are just a few examples, it's definitely not all encompassing, but really encouraging and supporting breastfeeding, right? We live in a world where we're, you know, where we either have to work or we have obligations where sometimes just being able to breastfeed, having the time to do that is a luxury. It's not always afforded to everybody. So really ensuring that we have support for our mothers that want to do that, and encourage them to do that. Other things are like having doula and postpartum supports for our mothers that want to have choice in where and how they give birth and what that looks like. Some other examples are, you know, assisting people with gardens and garden boxes. You know, we've learned a lot in the last 2 days about how difficult or complex maybe these processes are, but it's not unachievable. Some people just need a little bit of help or a little bit of teachings or somebody to ask questions of. So providing support and supplies for people to be able to do that. And then also creating you know, really empowering our local economies, local food economies. How are we empowering local community members to embark on, you know, farming or agriculture, or being able to utilize our land in that way to sustain our communities? And so these are just some examples of how we can support people. And then kind of tying in the creation story, just like Elena's mentioned before, is that the creation stories are so important as we're thinking about how to create these systems and recreate, or to bring back these systems in our communities, because all of our teachings they have teachings about foods and how that reciprocal relationship that we have with them. And those are foundational things that we need to be thinking about as we move in this direction. And so settler colonialism and you know, our people being forced onto reservations has really removed us from that. And it's also, it's really pushed negative, I guess, things in our communities. When I think about, when I say negative, I mean like really harmful policies. So like when you talk about rations that the government were giving us, those are foods that were intended to stop us from starving, and we're not providing nutritional value to us. So those are things that now we are seeing the devastating impacts of having those really poor, those bad foods, you know, starches and sugars and all the things that were not feeding us in a nutritional way. And we still have some of those. So it's about kind of undoing and unlearning those things that were done to us, and taking back what we know is right for our communities.
And so, the reason that we wanted to really start talking about, or just dive a little into policy, even though, you know, we did it in a way that made you think about creation and about our responsibility. Because when you hear policy, it's like, nah, I don't care, or it's something that feels away from us. But really, we're as people in communities, we can influence policy, we can request certain things. And if we're growing, like there's so many nations that are doing things, such as even in Bismarck, you know, they have a food co-op where they work together to all these different farms that are coming together to share their produce and sell them, you know, in a way we could be having a co-op of community members who are growing food, selling to White Buffalo or selling to the other nations. There could be, you know, a food alliance between us and other reservations that are working together to see what's working, what's not working, how are they, you know, getting a buffalo farm, how are they, you know, doing this or that. And really, we want to just start the conversation and figure out, like, how do we do this work together? Because for so long, through these settler colonial forces and agendas and the settler logic, we've been forced, and so many of our ways have been stolen, but we've been forced into isolation where we weren't allowed to work together. We weren't allowed to leave. We weren't allowed to think about these ways of being relatives again. And so when we think of food sovereignty, it's really us enacting, like, what does that look like for us to think in relational terms again, and develop these co-ops or develop these food alliances. And the thing is we don't have to do it alone. There's, you know, communities that Tasha and I have been in contact with that I'm sure a lot of you on here, I see Nate on here earlier, Sunshine, so many that are working around food sovereignty that have been in contact with communities that are doing beautiful work. And so how do we continue those conversations and share resources and learn from each other?
Yeah, and I think one of the things I think about too, when you talk about working together, is, you know, reviving our trade systems. There was a time when we shared with other tribes and we, you know, expanded our, you know, what we had available to our communities. And those are all things I think that happen on a small scale, definitely. But how do we revive that, you know, as larger communities? And then just like Elena mentioned, you know, everybody, it doesn't have, you don't have to carry a leadership position or be a director of a program or something to really encourage those kinds of changes within our communities. You know, I think that the more that we have these conversations, the more that we are educating people and talking about the importance of these things, I think that people will it'll start to sink in, I think. And the more we just put it into the universe, I really think that we can make some change. And so, and then the other, yeah,
can we get some lilies in here?
For real, even if they're in chat. But no, and I think, you know, this is just a really, I think, a powerful quote that we got from the Food Sovereignty Alliance is that, you know, and we've been saying it, but it goes well beyond just ensuring that we have enough food to meet our physical needs, but it also means that people must reclaim their power in the food system by rebuilding the relationship between people and the land and between food providers and those who eat. So this also talks about not only making sure that we have control over those systems, but it's also giving our people, our community members, a place in those systems, right? Giving them opportunities to contribute, to be a part of that, you know, whether it's a job or whether it's just a way to make a living, you know, and doing what they know how to do. We have to support some of that to be able to continue to help people to thrive in those areas. And so, you know, we're just thankful. We've been trying to learn, like Elena said, from other communities and really empower our community members and other community members to be able to take some of this back. And so I think one of the things that we wanted to do is just kind of give some examples of what this can look like. It can obviously, and I'm gonna let Elena take over. It can look really complicated, but it also can be really simple. So I'm gonna let Elena talk about this example of a breastfeeding policy.
Yeah, so we all know that there's so much support that's needed for mothers and for families, especially if they're breastfeeding, especially if they're, and I think a lot of people don't know that, like, or maybe have thought about it or trying to figure out ways, but breastfeeding is definitely involved in this food sovereignty movement because it's so important for moms, or babies, not only for babies to get, you know, nutrients from the mom and to have that first food be, you know, breast milk, or if it's not nursing, then pumping or whatever that looks like. But it's so important for the mom and baby connection too, because if you, and I'm not, you know, I'm not trying to shame anybody out, because through boarding schools, through colonization, again, we've been taught certain ways, like let them cry it out, let them do this, let them do that. But in the first few years for sure, there's so much research that's coming out about how important it is for babies in those first couple of months of their lives to have that continuous nurturing and support and connection. And breastfeeding is just a natural way for moms to always have a baby, you know, attached to them or with them or connected to them. And so I don't know if you guys have noticed throughout you know, these couple of days, just forever constantly nursing, you know, talking, you know, gobbling, nursing. But it's like, it's been so beautiful for me because I was a teen mom. And so I don't know if I would have, you know, and obviously people do, there are ways that people do connect with their babies, but I don't know if I was a teen mom, if I would have connected with my baby as deeply as I did if I wasn't breastfeeding. And there was so many times that I wanted to quit and times that I felt like it was hard. But that's where us as community members need to figure out what that support looks like for moms. And so that's also something that we've been thinking about in our organization. How do we support moms? Because it is hard and it is painful and it does get frustrating. And if you don't feel supported by your family because they don't know, you know, how to help, or they don't know what kind of supports you need, then it's easy just to say, well, okay, then I think I'm going to be done because this is how it is. And for those of you who weren't able to breastfeed long enough or felt like a week or a month wasn't long enough, that was beautiful, because that was, you know, what the baby needed at that time. And for whatever reason, it didn't work out for, you know, whatever it was meant to be, how it was meant to be. But it's just so important that we support the families in our community so that they can make those connections, and it just will have impacts way into the future for the child, for the mom, for the community, when they start to trust and learn that they could turn to people in the community. And so so this is just an example of a breastfeeding policy. I actually, when I was the health education director for Standing Rock, I got this policy. So it's basically word for word, except I added 2 extra policies from the North Dakota State University and also the North Dakota legislature, just to like basically back up the policy that I had proposed. And it's just a super simple template. And you guys can screenshot this. You could, you know, this is just a template as an example. So you can go to the next slide. It ended up not getting passed because we had turnover, and that's just something that has to happen, is that when you're working within a tribal community or really anything, it's you have to just preserve through it persevere through it. Because there are gonna, you know, our community is it's a little bit behind, not just ours. I'm not just saying Standing Rock, but a lot of our communities are behind the times when it comes to thinking of what, like, breastfeeding policies, health policies, giving people an hour a day to you know, do whatever they need to take care of their health. If that's working out, if that's meditating, if that's, you know, whatever that looks like, if that's napping for an hour. That in the United States, we're taught to like work ourselves into the ground and not, you know, not take care of ourselves, not take care of our families, not take care of our bodies. And so for us to have to even propose these policies, it just shows how far we're behind. But that's why when we start collectively thinking about the needs of our communities and ways that we could meet those needs, this is just one tiny little sliver of it. And so it's basically word for word from the Winnebago tribe. I met with somebody that worked at that. I think they still work there. They're the diabetes director at Winnebago. Their name is Lorelei Decora. And they basically gave me the policy. And I just switched out, you know, Winnebago to Standing Rock and changed a few words. But theirs was passed through their tribe. And so we know that this is an example of something that can be passed. And so the purpose is just to say, you know, that breastfeeding and or pregnant and postpartum people or mothers should be supported. And here are ways that looks like. So here's a purpose. You can screenshot it, put it in the same, you know, really blank template. Policy, all programs under Standing Rock Sioux Tribe will comply with the workplace breastfeeding policy. Again, this was in Winnebago, and so it basically looked just like this. Definitions, workplace breastfeeding policy supports employees in providing their children with the healthiest food. And so it basically is just, again, just saying what breast milk is, again, behind with the times, and saying that either you could use a health and fitness wellness time, you know, and these are things that other communities are doing. I think this was crossed out because they said it wouldn't pass through Standing Rock if this was on it. Anyways, but this is an example of ways that you can support, and it's a small policy, but there are places all over the country. There are other tribes that are doing this. And so if you write in the survey that you would like support in having a fitness hour or having, I don't know, whatever that looks like, we can help you tailor this policy and help you find resources if that's what you want. Because we're realizing that the work that we're doing, a part of it will be a branch of thinking about what legislation's out there, what policies are out there, because this is all, you know, beautiful to say, but if it's not supported or if it's not written somewhere, then it's hard for us to just to do these things. And so
I think one of the things too is that for some reason we automatically think like, oh, well, they can just go in the bathroom and have a private stall, and just to think about how ridiculous that is and unsanitary, and just not, you know, why would we say that our mothers have to go sit in a bathroom to be able to pump if they need to, you know? So I think those are just, again, like Elena said, just showing how far removed we are from the way we should be and how our thinking is.
And then really thinking about like how, you know, everything, even this session is like timed. And so it's really funny to have to say 1 hour for breastfeeding, but really it should be like going to the bathroom. You just go and you do what you need to do and take care of yourself and your body as you need to. And so really thinking of like how we have to work in this system of saying these certain parameters, but yeah, that these are the things that should just be supported. And so if there's a way that we could just write these into our policies, this is something that as a community, as a collective, we just have to start getting behind, because this is the, you know, the world we live in and the processes we have to go through. And so that's one example. It could be breastfeeding, it could be for a wellness day, it could be whatever.
And another, this is just another example that we pulled, just a little bit different perspective. So this is coming from the Dene Community Advocacy Alliance. And so really just high level overview of what they did here was they started to look at taxes. So, and I think we've seen this in a lot of other communities, and unfortunately, you know, that's the world we live in, where, you know, taxing and not taxing, those are things that are impacting and driving people's decision making and behaviors. And so this is just an example of how the Navajo Nation really brought forth an idea to increase taxes on unhealthy foods, but also, this is something I haven't seen a lot of, is eliminating taxes on fruits and vegetables. And so what they did was they proposed to increase those unhealthy foods by 2%, the taxes on those unhealthy foods by 2%. And then they wanted to totally eliminate the 5% tax that would be normally on any foods, which included fruits and vegetables. And so if you read this, it just talks about how the first time it didn't go through, you know, it didn't go through, it wasn't passed. And, you know, I think we face those things all the time. And I really honestly believe that it's because of a lack of understanding, a lack of education. People don't quite understand what impact these kinds of policies can have on people's behaviors. And I think it sometimes gets controversial too, because we look at, you know, when we look at people that live in poverty and maybe are buying those unhealthy foods out of necessity, you know, they're buying it because it's cheaper, and they don't understand, you know, the benefit of these other things. They're just not able to stretch their dollars. But that is why I think a policy like this, where you're decreasing some of the costs for those healthy foods, is really awesome. And so they did eventually get this passed. And I think one of the best things about this is that any of the 2% taxes that were put on unhealthy foods are then put back into any healthy initiatives in their chapters. And so that money goes back into the community. We see similar efforts around tobacco, right? When you increase tobacco taxes, or you have those tobacco taxes, you're putting that back into tobacco prevention efforts. So that's just kind of, again, you're seeing there is a cost, but that cost is going to a good cause and going to help combat some of those issues. So that's just another example that we wanted to share of another community. And if you have examples, or you want to share things with us, like I said, we said all along, feel free to speak up and share those things.
Yeah, and so I think it's really beautiful to think about, like, as organizations in, you know, all over Indian country, as we've seen this morning, that there's people from everywhere in here, that we can really start thinking of, like, what does a food alliance look like for us? What does a co-op look like for us? And then as a united, you know, collective, whatever that will look like, that will we could be presenting some of these policies or some of these, like, tax proposals, you know, to the tribes or to the state, or because it's really like, yeah, maybe we might get one or two really down person of color in Senate or the House that will propose these bills, but it's just one person, and a lot of times they get shut down. And so really, if we start coming together and thinking about what that looks like for a collective of organizations to be proposing these things, and connecting with other collectives. There's collectives in Minnesota, there's collectives and Hawaiian alliances in Hawaii, and so, or food alliances in Hawaii. And so really thinking of how beautiful and impactful that will be for us to be coming together united like that. And so yeah, that was a lot of information and a lot of things to think about. And so we'll probably cruise through this quick recipes, and then we'll break out into groups, because there's probably a lot of discussions from this beautiful day already. So when we think about recipes, we really wanted to just emphasize the importance of building our own personal connections with those plants and foods. Because if you go online and you look up, you know, Well for Culture, they have so many beautiful indigenous ancestral food recipes. If you go to NDSU, they have cookbooks. Sean, I forgot his name, but he has a Lakota cookbook. There's, you know, Linda. Yeah, Sean Sherman, he has a Lakota food cookbook. Linda posts different recipes on her Facebook all the time. There's a wealth of knowledge of recipes online, but how many of us, you know, do them often? We probably, like me, I have screenshots all over my phone where I'm like, gonna make that later, never do. And so I think, like, when I think about, even when I had my boy and I had my boy at home, and I was preparing for that traditional birth, and I had a midwife that would come to my house and check my blood sugar, my blood pressure, all those things. And I had always known about traditional foods, and I had always, like, you know, we would go pick plums, we would go pick choke cherries. There's all these ways that I had different connections with food, but it wasn't my own. Like, I didn't see firsthand the strength that they, you know, that they would give me. And so for me, because that's how my mind works, and so for me to see the numbers, like, oh, I have low iron, I have, you know, I have high blood sugar, I have this, and for my midwife to say, or even, you know, my sisters in here, I had different groups that I was a part of, and they were, you know, indigenous women that were empowering me through my traditional birth. They're like, have nettles, you know, drink red raspberry tea, do this, do that. And I was a trial and error for me, because I would pick it, I would make it. There was one got moldy, drank it, you know, like, oh, mess that up. And so I had to have this trial and error process. But when I was able to see, like, how my iron went up, my blood sugar went down, just from changing, you know, I didn't change anything else except those teas or those certain medicines that I was adding. We ground up nettles and put them in our salt, because Beth had taught me that, and, you know, just all these other things. And that was the first time that I got to see, like, that, what, you know, it actually does that, what people say it's going to do. And so I think, like, really thinking about what your personal connection looks like to these plants and these animal relatives and these plant relatives, and learning about the uses. And I think too, sometimes we feel overwhelmed, because especially during this pandemic, when everybody was like, you know, make a garden, do this, do that, and there's like 100 things that you could do. But what I see so many people doing, and this is really like an indigenous way, is they're diving deep into, like, getting to know one plant at a time. Because long time ago, our people didn't know, you know, hundreds and thousands of plants, or they did know them, but there was always a select few that, like, this person knew 10 plants, 20 plants so well, or even sometimes 5 plants, like, perfectly, and you knew to go to this person for that. Or this person had another set of plants that they were, you know, so well versed in, or that they had a deep relationship with or a connection with. And so we had that sharing of information all the time. And so we weren't expected to know thousands of things, and I think, or hundreds of things. And so that's why I think we get overwhelmed sometimes in this, like, you know, Facebook, social media society, where people are learning these things and it looks cool, but whatever we make a connection to, whatever we put our energy and our time into is what will continue to grow for us. And so really thinking about what that relationship looks like. So if we learn about, you know, whatever, if, you know, when we do develop this living calendar, thinking about what that relationship is to the certain plants in May, and how do we harvest them in a good way? How do we take care of them in a good way? How do we teach others? How do we share the knowledge that we have? How do we learn from others and just continue to do that? That's like, that's the goal. That's what we're trying to do. We're not trying to, you know, stuff all this information, you know, down your throats and all of you have to be able to regurgitate it. We really want to encourage each of you to think about what those healing processes look like for you and what those relationships look like for you. And so I'm thankful that so many people here today, you know, taught us so many things, and we're able to share, and whatever you pick up, that's what you're meant to pick up. Whatever things that you feel like, you know, for me, for the first time today, me and my boy goblad meat together. I had always, you know, obviously cut it up and had that process with it, but had never tried to gobla. I feel like I left that up to Red Rock. But anyway, so that was really beautiful for me, and I felt really good and emotional about it. And it's already in our little ninja getting dried. Well, we don't have anything built yet, or anyways, but
I think the other thing when we talk about you know, understanding when to have, or this calendar that we're talking about too, it's so important that we're connecting to each other and talking about these things, because things have changed so much, right? Things that why do they call them June berries? Because of what that was when you harvested them, but it's so different now. They're not even ready in June anymore. So the more we stay connected and learn from each other and have these discussions, we're going to be better prepared to understand when we have to harvest those things, how to harvest them, you know, how they're changing, because everything is just changing so much because of what's happening to our earth.
Yeah, and so being in constant conversation, like Melanie wrote in the chat that Team Sila season is coming up. And so just talking with each other, if they've gone out and have checked the Team Sila, if they've, you know, dug any up, because sometimes people are like, yeah, they're done for, they're squishy. And I was like, you know, when I was growing up, I was like, I don't even know what squishy means. Is that good? Is it bad? But it's bad. And so really thinking about, yeah, the relationship to each other and communicating with each other. But okay, so we'll go through just a couple. We're not going to go through a lot because we want to save time to just to talk and debrief.
Yeah, I think we just added a few things in here, you know, like this is an example of, so venison and sweet potato hash. I know a lot of our people hunt, and not everybody can, you know, or wants to get it processed. So having just fresh venison that you cut up, you know, roast, whatever, however you process your deer yourself, you know, just being able to think about ways to prepare that. I know one of the things I talked to Elena about was that sometimes it's all in knowing how to prepare it. Somebody may say, ooh, I don't like that, or I don't like just straight up deer meat, but it might be because we don't know how to prepare it in a way that tastes good, or we're not doing it, it's tough, or it just tastes really gamey, and maybe somebody doesn't like that. So learning how to prepare foods in a way that is delicious to you is really important too. And then just like examples of, you know, I think about things that grow naturally. You can combine things that grow naturally and things that you have to buy from the store, like avocados. I don't think we can grow them here, so we might have to buy those, but we can. There are, you know, lettuces that grow naturally. We have, you know, berries that we can pick. And so just making a simple salad from as a combination of things that we have to buy at the store and things that we have available to us out on the land or in our gardens. We just wanted to share a couple recipes. Again, all of these are from online resources, really simple, easy things that you can make with simple ingredients.
And really thinking about like how so many of us could just go for a walk. Like Brianne was talking about Linda taking some of our youth on a walk to, she's like, just bring your salad dressing. We'll pick some, you know, the vegetables that we can eat. And I would need that because he'll be picking poison ivy or something. Just kidding. But so I think of like how beautiful it would be for us to teach our kids, like, don't touch that, but this is good. And here, just eat it, you know, walk around. And, but yeah. And then, so thinking about like how important it is for us to make bone broth. So this is one of our, partnerships, their postpartum healing lodge. We can also share this recipe guide with you. It's mainly for postpartum care. So there's a few teas and recipes and things, but this was really beautiful. My family had made this for the first time for a mom that was you know, in going into labor, and it was so beautiful to think through the process of, you know, baking the bone and then just letting it sit for hours and hours and putting a bunch of vegetables into it, and then putting all of our prayers into it and thinking about the baby, thinking about the mom. And so when we think of like how intentional those meals are when we cook them for other people, a lot of times I feel like, well, for me, I forget to keep putting that same intention and prayer and all of that into when I make them for, you know, myself or our own family. Sometimes, you know, we forget those things. And so this, I just wanted to share this one because this is one of the first meals I made in that that bone broth through this training. And then the next one is just a blood building tea. And I know Linda shares so many different tea combinations, and also Sunshine. So whoever gets packages, and I'm sure Sunshine would be happy to just give you a list of the names of the teas that are in those tea blends that she's making for the door prizes. But there's so many ways that we could be, you know, making teas and just having them in our fridge or whenever we're ready for them. For me, when I was going into labor or getting ready for the birth of my boy, I had big jars of teas you know, wait, just in my house, in my fridge. So whenever I was needing them, I would just go, you know, drink teas, and I felt a connection to them after I was able to like see how they were helping me and see the ways that it was, you know, just raising the level of health for, oh, yay. Sunshine's making bone broth soup now. Okay. And then here's just a blank card. So if you see a recipe somewhere, or if you are somebody who likes to write it down or tries different blends, or, you know, wants to try making connections with food that, you know, or maybe you write down the wasna recipe or whatever that looks like for you. Here's an example of a recipe card, that what it could look like, have the name on top, what the prep looked like, ingredients. So yeah, so beautiful 2 days. Just kidding. So we talked a lot about healing and what that looks like for us. Each of us had different experiences. Like, I didn't know I was going to get emotional today when we did the downward dog thing. And I was like thinking, even though it was my carpet, I was like, holy earth hugging me. I felt just really, you know, just taken care of. And I just feel like, even though us two-legged are really, you know, arrogant, and we do things that we've been taught in really bad ways, that the earth and creator are so forgiving. And so even, you know, Linda talking about sharing the, you know, if we're preparing foods in a certain way, that it's so forgiving, that as long as we're just making that connection and putting forth that effort, the teachings and the people that are needed and the resources that are needed will come, because we're doing that little bit of effort towards it. And so a part of, you know, we talked a little bit about harvesting, preservation practices, gardening, policies, recipes, probably a whole bunch of information in these past 2 days. But it was, and there could have been, you know, like we said in the beginning, there could have been weeks and weeks of more information, but this is a start. And we really hope, again, that you fill out the surveys, pushing enter here. But we really hope that you fill out the surveys so that we can continue to offer the information and supports that you all need to, or that you would all would like to see, for us to continue moving together as a collective, as just relatives in trying to be better and do better for our communities. So with that, one of the survey questions, or one of the survey responses. Oh, sorry, I was seeing Sunshine gave the list of things she put in her tea blends, and so that's really cool. I don't know the parts of it or whatever, 1 part, 2 parts, I don't know, but throw them together. Throw them up. Just kidding. But okay, so one of the responses was that they wanted to just have an open discussion. And so if they're, you know, we're going to give everyone the option to pick a room. I think we're going to have a room that's talking about recipes and food preservation with Linda and whoever else wants to join that room. And just whatever comes up in that conversation, it'll be beautiful and generative. And the other one, we will have a room for policies, but really that could be just community organizing. We could start thinking about what a co-op might look like, what an alliance might look like. And then the other one, I think we said, was going to be community gardens and seasonal foraging. And so we asked if Sunshine and Melanie and whoever else would like to be in that room to just share about, well, how do you even get started? You know, does somebody have starters? Could, you know, if we got the seeds, whatever that looks like. And then there's a room that we're going to have just open. So if somebody just wants to go and process maybe, or just shoot the breeze, or whatever that looks like. Tell your best dad jokes, whatever that looks like. But we want to give you all space to just talk, probably for about 20 minutes or so. Or maybe, yeah.
About 15 maybe.
Okay.
Well, no, actually, no, we could do 20 minutes.
Okay, we'll do 20 minutes, and then we'll just close out with final door prizes, and then we'll be done.
So this is gonna give you the choice when I open these rooms, you're gonna get to pick which room which topic area you wanna go into. So just go ahead and jump in there. But if Linda's still on, if she would go on food preservation and recipes, Sunshine and Melanie, if you could jump, oh yeah, Linda's still here. Sunshine and Melanie, if you jump into the community gardens and seasonal foraging, and then Elena and I will probably jump into policies, or one of us maybe will go into the other one too. But so I will open all those rooms and go ahead and jump in whatever one fits best for you.
So you click the bottom, there's these breakout rooms. You click the bottom and then you can choose one.
We've never done this before, so I'm glad that you're walking them through it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, cool. I see people jumping in there. Good.
Okay.
I could just go in the additional topics too, Tasha,
Okay.
that way we.
Yep. And I'll watch. If nobody joins policies, because that's no fun, then I'll just see where people go.
What if I was the only one that joined policies? Oh, hold on, not on me.
Want to make sure everybody jumps in before I leave.
Can't seem to be able to jump in.
So what did she say on the bottom? I don't know if you go to those, shoot.
You have to click, typically you have to just click on the room, but I can't seem to just do that.
It's not letting you go in there?
Mm-mm.
Which room do you want to go to? I could probably.
The food preservation.
Food preservation, okay.
Thanks.
Let me move you, so it's
Thank you.
Assigned to food preservation. Do you see it now?
Perfect.
Okay. Does anybody else need help getting in there? Let's see. I can't see. So Deb, what room do you want to go to? If you just tell me, I'll assign you to it and it'll pop up for you. So do you want policy, do you want community gardens and seasonal foraging, or food preservation and recipes? I hope you can hear me, Deb. So either, okay, preservation. I will send you to that one. Okay, you should get a window that pops up now. Okay, perfect. I forgot to pause recording. Hold on. Hey, Nate.
Hey.
Oh my gosh, this is hard to like juggle all this. Hold on, let me stop the recording.